Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. It's been a long time coming, but we are officially back. And we can only thank you guys and the Indianapolis Colts for giving us something to finally talk about. We're going to go through all of it. 5 days of free agency is down into, you know, the offseason here. And we're going to go ahead and discuss what we got going on. We got a lot of news for you guys, but appreciate all the support. Follow us on all platforms. I'm not here alone. I got my guys with me. Colts Film Room and Landon. Colts Film Room, how we doing, man? Long time no see.
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a good feeling right now. Feeling vibey. Got Landon with me. Landon, long time no see. Landon, how we doing?
Yeah, man, doing good. It's still just getting back in my bearings from vacation. Spent the last week or two, down in Florida, enjoying everything, and got back just in time for the Colts and Chris Ballard to just kind of pop off. So, yeah.
He definitely popped off, man. Coming from the presser, um, he shared his thoughts. He had us fooled at first, but he mentioned how aggressive he was going to be in this offseason and how stubborn he was in the past. And of course, a lot of us didn't believe him. But a lot of us are on that. You got to prove it instead of just saying it. And he wound up proving it. And we're going to go through all the acquisitions he picked up. And we're going to talk about the players we lost as well throughout the free agency period to start this offseason. So let's go ahead and hop into the players that we lost. It wasn't a lot of players, just a few. We're going to share a few thoughts as well. But most of the players we lost went to the NFC. We're going to start with Dio or Dangbo going to Chicago. Will Fries
NFC
and Ryan
North,
Kelly
actually.
both went to Mills. Say that again?
NFC North, actually. They all went to
Yes,
NFC North.
correct. Will Fries and Ryan Kelly went to the Vikings, and Grant Stewart went to the Lions. So all of these guys are going to be playing each other. It's going to be interesting. We can share our thoughts first. Landon, what was your thoughts on Will Fries and Ryan Kelly both going to Minnesota?
Yeah, well, I mean, the writing was kind of on the wall for, Ryan Kelly. It's been kind of discussed over the last couple years on whether he would return, even just last year. And he obviously came back last year. And obviously all the stuff happened, and we've rehashed that stuff 1,000 times. So I'm not going to get into that, but yeah, I mean, the writing was on the wall for him. But great career here, incredible draft pick, probably one of the only few good Ryan Grigson draft picks. So he was the longest tenured Colt, the sole leftover player, from that era of Colts football, and it's exciting to see him get another opportunity and go out and prove his worth and stuff like that. I know that's something he's really looking forward to doing. As far as Will Fries goes, that one is a little bit tougher because we go through the offensive line. This was something I've kind of been banging the table on for months. Is that this offensive line, it's not quite as just rock solid bulletproof as what people think it is. It's not, everybody was saying, let Ryan Kelly walk, cut Braden Smith. We're going to, retool all this kind of stuff. I said, hey, like, it's not quite that simple. And, you hope guys like Tanner Bortolini or, Danny Pinter, who returned also on a 1-year deal here, they're going to be in an open competition, obviously, for that center spot. You hope one of them can grab the reins. Bortolini played pretty well as a rookie, so you kind of hope that transition goes a little smooth. But Will Fries is a big loss. It is a big loss because they don't have anybody on the roster right now unless you kind of get creative. I think they view Matt Gonzalez as a tackle. Everything they did last year told you they view him as a tackle. Could they decide to kick him in? Possibly. Could I've even floated out there like Braden Smith coming back on a reduced contract. He was originally drafted to be a guard. Maybe they make that transition finally in his last year of the deal. And I mean, we'll see. There's a lot of avenues they could go, but to me, it all points towards the draft. Like you're going to have to replace Will Fry's production either in the draft or through free agency or something like that. And it's going to be a lot to replace because we saw last year as he went down, the right side of that offensive line between Braden Smith's injuries and what he had going on and Will Fries being down, it collapsed. It was not great. So yeah, we'll see. Happy for Will Fries, got paid, guy came in as a end of the draft selection for them, improved every single year, worked his tail off, and now he he cashed in for a huge payday. So that's awesome for him. Wishing him all the success up in Minnesota. And now it's going to be up to Chris Ballard and the Colts to solidify that spot on the right side of the offensive line.
Yeah, I think I think it sounds so. Like, I really wanted Will Fries back. It's no secret. I kind of thought that they would do it. I didn't know. I guess I should have thought better to think that $88 million wasn't going to be what his final number was going to end at. I think that's where, the Colts made an offer for sure, tried to keep him around. That's been reported. But, $88 million is a lot of money that, frankly, they could have done. And you could have said it would have been a smart move. You could have said that. But also would have handcuffed them in a lot of ways for other, obviously, roster moves that they wanted to make and continuing to add competition across the roster. So it sounds really bad on paper. It's certainly not ideal. I think I agree with Landon in the sense of Ryan Kelly. The writing was kind of on the wall with Tanner Bortolini. He played well in spots. Now it wasn't the same. And I think they're going to miss Ryan Kelly. I think that was a weird narrative. They kind of got started that Ryan Kelly was washed. He couldn't stay healthy, but he certainly, when he was in the game, was not bad. He was a very good center. It's going to sting. But I do think it's a fine alternative because the Colts, looking back on this, Chris Ballard, I want to say, I got to go find this question. But after the draft was someone asked him oh, you didn't want to get involved with the day 2 DBs. Cause I think the Rutgers, Max Melton was one of them. There was a couple other day 2 DBs. He's I didn't see
Sandra Still.
Yeah. Sarah Still, he was more a nickel, but there was more I have to go find that question because that stuck with me because he went, and at the time you're man, okay, drafting on the offensive line. And that's proving to be a really smart decision for Chris Ballard because it doesn't sting as much as it could. You know what I mean? I think it's a fine alternative. It's not ideal, but it's not like the Colts are sitting there and they have to, do what some other teams are doing, which is basically trade for guys to a long shot and then hope your offensive line coach.
Kind of funnily enough, it's kind of what Minnesota's doing because they saw their offensive line get completely dismantled in the postseason. And they went out now. And
they just had more talent across the roster.
Yeah. They spent huge money on it. Chicago's kind of in the same boat as well. They've out and made some big deals. So
it's nice
I think that guys in house.
Yeah, I agree that it's the draft is probably where they're going to go. It stinks because I think Chris Ballard is found successful offensive linemen in the draft. I would say that Quentin Nelson and Braden Smith were the only two that showed up right away for him. I think Bernhard Raimann was a guy that and Will Fries were two guys that were basically laughed at by the entire fan base. And then they turned it around and played really good football. So hopefully you can get that from Gonzalez. It's kind of going back to that. I don't know. It's possible they see him as a guard. I thought that they had opportunities last year. I know that with Braden being out and Will Fries being out, it created some things. They had opportunities to put Matt Gonzalez there
they went with Dalton Tucker.
But I can't. I have to go look if there was a game specifically because also Ryman was out with a concussion at one point in the Detroit game. So I have to go look at that, but I'm almost positive that they had opportunities to do it and they just didn't do it. So that makes me think that they viewed him more as a tackle or they would have maybe experimented like that. I do think, and I probably agree with it, is that the Colts don't like to do the shuffling thing. If you're they don't like to do what the Chiefs did last year. So they would rather have one weak link than move guys around just to put good guys in out of position spots. So, it'll be really interesting to see what they do there. I do think this probably answers questions that we'll talk about for the next month about the draft of the Colts are and getting to Dio. It's Dio, I think was a guy that was a rotational pass rusher, certainly had some fan favorites on Twitter, certainly did some good things. But ultimately, the Colts were never going to be in that market. I think we knew that from the second free agency really started and months before. But also, you now look at the edge, the defensive end room, and Latu is the only guy under contract past the end of the season. So, you have to think about that where it's and this can open a whole, and this will, for our draft shows, I will talk more about positional value and stuff like that. But having young edge rushers that you don't have to, you shouldn't have to do what the Bears did. The Bears are getting a lot of credit, but in an ideal world, I'd rather just have draft and develop guys for cheap instead of going out and overpaying for guys because they were overpays. Everyone got overpaid. I think that's where like the focus has to go right to the trenches, O-line, D-line.
Yeah, man, for sure.
And then Grant Stewart. I want to get Marcus. You should talk about Grant Stewart.
I am heartbroken about Grant Stewart. One of the best pieces out there, special team wise, and even when he played linebacker, I think he was a very pivotal piece, very important, good tackler. Wasn't the best out there, but I thought his energy and his impact was definitely noticeable, flying all over the field. And when I seen the news that he got shipped to Detroit for that contract, I was heartbroken. Like I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink. I was like, my favorite player with the long hair, my Troy Polamalu is gone. Who's going to replace him? I don't know who's going to be, but hey,
they just signed a guy that probably will.
Wow. But yeah, they're definitely going to replace him. But hey, he's on the contender now. Yes. He's on the contender. So I mean, I'm happy for him. Got a deal done. Hopefully, he gets more playing time than what he did in Indianapolis. But hey, he's definitely going to be missed in my eyes for sure. But lo and behold, the Colts definitely replaced it. Before that move, they made some more moves. Definitely shocked the world with these two. Cam Bynum and Tre'Davious Ward both got signed to the Indianapolis Colts. 4 years for Bynum, 3 years for Ward, $60 million. Looks like DBs got picked up. A lot of DBs got picked up for Indianapolis, but both of these two definitely shocked everyone in the Colts fan base. I just want to get your thoughts, Landon. What was your thoughts when the Colts went out there and paid big bucks day one for some DBs? What was your thoughts?
Yeah, you remember like that LeBron James meme is always like whenever he's like, it's about damn time.
Yes.
Like, that's what I feel about secondary additions to this roster. It's about damn time. Like that's been really the Achilles heel of this defense going back probably since I can remember. I mean, not even just in like the Chris Ballard era, like since
you guys remember the Greg Toller days?
That's what I'm saying is like, I mean, even going back, like since Vontae Davis was probably the last time they had like a true shutdown. I mean, you might be able to throw Stephon Gilmore in there as well. He was only here for a year, but really like Vontae Davis that season back in 2013, 2014, that was one of my favorite seasons of Colts football ever. Namely because of what he did on defense and how he was. I mean, it's one of the greatest cornerback seasons in history. And you can go look up like the advanced analytics, all that. Vontae Davis, rest in peace. God bless him. Unbelievable talent. And I've kind of been chasing that feeling for like 10 years now, like to experience that again. And they haven't invested a ton. I mean, there's been a lot of, Chris Ballard specifically, he's kind of missed on a few of the higher picks, in the second round. Obviously, his first draft, Quincy, I think it was Quincy Wilson, who he selected there.
Florida.
Yeah, from Florida. Didn't pan out, obviously.
Can I make a point? Can I make a point real quick? Chris Ballard has actually drafted a DB more than any other position in the draft. Yeah. I think 20% of his picks are DBs. And he's missed on every single one of them.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is like a lot of it has come. I mean, you have like the 2 second-round guys, but outside of like Nick Cross in the third, it's really been, 7th rounder, 6th rounder, undrafted free agent, and I mean like they struck gold obviously with Kenny Moore, who was an undrafted free agent. I think last year with Womack claiming him as an undrafted free agent, even Charvarius Ward. Undrafted free agent. So you can strike gold in that, but they just haven't. It's not a position that and edge, I would say, are like the two biggest, well, other than quarterback, obviously, which we'll see how that plays out. But like that's really been Chris Ballard's Achilles heel is edge rushers and DBs. And what's funny is he was known coming from Chicago and Kansas City as a guy that specialized in DB play. And it just has not translated to this.
He coached Al Harris at Texas A&M Kingsville. I thought he would actually get a look at the Colts DC.
Yeah, like I thought like the writing was on the wall. And this is another thing. Like if you've watched the show plenty of times over the last few months, This is kind of something that I've echoed, Ben has echoed, like you've talked about. They've told you what they were going to do. They have spelled it out for you, not only in Chris Ballard's pressers, but with the coach hirings. Like most of their coach hirings involved guys who specialize in defensive back play. Like Lou Anarumo's defense specializes, like you have to have rock solid defensive back play for it to be at its peak. That is something that is non-negotiable. And so everything they did kind of told you this was the route they were going to take in free agency and or the draft, is they were going to completely remake this DB room. They're going to add competition up and down it. They didn't even really add competition. Like, I mean, they did, but like they added impact starters at those roles. They didn't, sign like the day 3 guy who's going to come in and compete. They went and got impact players who can start day 1 and, do their job. So now this creates competition on like the other end, like, because now you've got Juju Brents, high second round pick, hasn't stayed healthy. Don't know what he is. Nobody knows. You've got Jones, late round selection, little bit of question marks on his fit in this defense. I know he's played really well in Gus Bradley's defense, but this is a whole other monster. We'll see how that plays out. Even Womack, who had some really good moments last year. How does he, transition into that cornerback 2 slot? So I think the real competition is at your cornerback 2 spot. I think every other position now, including your nickel, your cornerback 1, both of your safety spots, those are locked and loaded. Those are locked down. I still think they need to add another safety somewhere, namely because Lou Anarumo loves playing 3 safeties, and I do not want to see Rodney Thomas out on the field, unless they have to. So I think they still have some depth work to do at that safety position, but I'm extremely excited. This was all I was basically banging the table for this offseason, was please, for the love of God, address the secondary. This is all I've been saying for like 2-3 years now, is so address the secondary. So they did it. I'm happy. I'm excited. Let's roll.
So I'm not playing like rating on everyone's parade. I think it's awesome too. Like, first of all, I thought the Colts would 100%, and I think you can go look at my past tweets. I said that they were going to get free agents in the secondary in some capacity. Now, I did not think that they were going to be in the market for some of the bigger fish. I did not think that was a thing. I thought when you looked at the Colts cap space, and this is part of the reason I was kind of bugging out the weekend before free agency, I'm like, why have they not restructured Braden Smith's contract? They need that cap space to work with. They ended up just doing it hours before, whatever. Still don't think that's I still think he could have done that earlier. Probably things that out of their control. Anyway, let's just call it what it is. These are overpays that the Colts had to make. Like, Cam Bynum is not a $15 million APY safety. Charvarius Ward is a really good player, didn't play like it last year for obvious reasons, but that's what happens. Like, the Colts went out there and was competing with the Saints for Charvarius Ward, and they swooped in the last second and made it happen. They paid a lot of money to do so. Now, I think these guys should be immediate impacts, but they have to play to their contracts now. Like, that's the next step, or else you're just with the Jaguars and whatever, the Giants in 2015, and these teams that think that they can buy their team by getting people who, just assembling a roster like it's baseball and the Dodgers. Like, it's not how it works necessarily. You need to be able to draft and develop talent. So, definitely happy with the 2 moves. I do want to acknowledge that they are overpays, which is fine. They're overpays that they had to make. But they're the perfect fit for this defense. I think the Colts secondary has gone from a weakness to at least, at a bare minimum, will be average. And that was the Achilles heel, because the Colts made all these investments in the defensive line and then really saw zero benefit of them because their secondary was so bad. So, yeah, I think there were 2 really good ads, and now it's time to just go prove it for those contracts.
Definitely got to do that, man. And it's nothing but opportunity, especially at the state of this division. But I'm glad that they had addressed the DB room. They made some more signings, but signing these two pieces was definitely some moves that needed to be done. So shout out to the Colts for making those moves. And now all they got to do is showcase it out there in the field when the time comes. Other than that, we got us Ballard addressed this situation, added competition to the locker room in all the departments, and the competition for the QB room has finally addressed. Of course, there's a lot of names that I would have rather acquired at the QB position, but their move was made. They wound up going to get Daniel Jones as the backup quarterback, 1 year, $14 million deal. He's going to be competing against Anthony Richardson. A lot of Colts fans have Daniel Jones winning this QB battle. Of course, I got Richardson. It's not even close, but I don't know where they're getting this logic from. It's pretty interesting. Of course, I've seen my guy Landa go back and forth on social media. I watch his tweets all the time. It's very entertaining. But Colts Film Room, I'm going to let you go first. What was your thoughts on the Daniel Jones signing?
Listen, I don't think it's that hard. What happened, it really is not that hard because however you feel about Anthony Richardson, does not matter. He has not done enough factually on the field. Off the field, obviously had the situation throughout the season that led to the benching. And then the most important part is he just hasn't stayed healthy. He's played 15 games out of 2 years. And the Colts need better. I've officially, I thought about this morning. I'm going to start calling Anthony Richardson the human EKG because when you watch him play, it's like that EKG graph. It's like, ew, terrible throw, 3 and out. Sailed ball into the end zone. Oh my God, that was one of the greatest plays I've ever seen. Ew. Oh my God, what are we doing? Oh my God, that was unreal. Like it's these spikes. And it's not even a roller coaster because the highs don't happen often enough. So to me, it's like I'm being gaslit, I think, in a way by like the NFL media to say that Daniel Jones is remotely as talented as Anthony Richardson. Like Daniel Jones can't make the plays that Anthony Richardson can make. He has not shown that. But I do like the signing, and I'll tell you why. The Colts had to thread a really tough needle. As soon as they say here, we're not going to move on from Anthony Richardson. Well, and you know that they didn't want to do that because they weren't in the Stafford market. They weren't in the Darnold market. They were never going to be in the Darnold market. That was, like I said, just driving up the price for Darnold. And who knows what Darnold's market wouldn't have looked like if Geno didn't get traded. They probably would have been in the Geno trade. So like that priced him out of those top quarterbacks. You have to get that out of your mind because they weren't going to have the money and those guys weren't going to come. You can go be a starter. I'm going to sit there with the 4th overall pick and compete. And then for me, there's this clear drop off of guys where it's like at the end of the day, you have to look DeForest Buckner, Quentin Nelson, Michael Pittman Jr., these guys in the room and say Anthony Richardson himself and say, you're going to compete with this guy. So if you sign, I don't know, like Jameis or like Mariota to a 1 year, $4 million deal, it's like no one believes you're going to start him. Anthony Richardson has no incentive to take this seriously. But Daniel Jones is the perfect guy. Like he started a game. He's been a 6-year starter. It hasn't been well. No one's arguing that. There is not a lot on Daniel Jones. You're muted.
No, I said, oh no, there's plenty of people arguing that.
Well, yeah. But I don't think that there's very little positives and hope. The hope is that he has the Sam Darnold year. And we'll get into that. But like, it's not that hard for me. Like Anthony Richardson is going to be the favorite to win this competition. You had to look guys like DeForest Buckner and your veteran leaders in the eyes and say, here's real legitimate competition. And whether you think that's real legitimate competition or not, Chris Ballard probably had to find a quarterback that he paid $13 million because that's a great – I think that you could look at that and you're a Colts player. It's like, oh, it's Daniel Jones. But that's a $13 million deal. They're for real about this being a competition. This isn't fake. So it feels real. I think the comments – and I'll say this now because I think you should expect it later on – is like the comments you will get throughout training camp are going to be, this is a legitimate competition. You're going to see Anthony Richardson split reps with Daniel Jones. It's not going to be this faux thing. But there's no reason that – Anthony Richardson should lose this competition. He's infinitely more talented. If he comes with the right work ethic, makes the improvements they want to make, there's so much more. It's way more advantageous for the staff. Like we're all nodding. It's way more advantageous for the staff for Anthony Richardson to reach his ceiling, which may never get reached.
It's more advantageous for the fan base.
Exactly. Yeah, but I'm thinking about like the staff keeping their job. Like the best case scenario with Daniel Jones is, okay, maybe you earn the right to get your butt kicked by the Bills, but like with Anthony Richardson, if he reaches that ceiling, which might not ever happen, it might not ever happen, and there's maybe a greater chance that it won't happen than it will. But if he does, the Colts can compete for championships. That's just a fact. Daniel Jones' ceiling will never touch that. So the Colts want to see Anthony Richardson do well. I think you see through the tea leaves here, but like this is what they did to make it feel as real as possible. I think that in that case, it's a really good signing, because if Anthony Richardson can't beat out Daniel Jones, season's done anyway. Like, and you're going with Daniel Jones is like a nothing to lose option. We have nothing to lose. We're probably getting fired anyway. Like, let's see what he can do. So that's my thoughts on it. I don't think it's that hard. I actually love the signing for that reason, but it's not like I'm going to sit here, like the people that are suggesting that Daniel Jones is like the runaway favorite in this competition is absolutely insane.
Do I actually have to talk about this? That's my question.
Absolutely. Some people don't know what happened, so you have to let them know.
All right. So basically, I mean, like, I do agree with Ben. Like, in a vacuum, and like I've even tweeted this out, in a vacuum, I do not hate the sign. I don't hate Daniel Jones. My issue with it is almost entirely based on the money, which Ben made the counterpoints of that, and I do agree with that as well. But I just, whenever I look at it and I sit there and I think, okay, well, like we just stated, if Daniel Jones does end up winning the job, he does have to come in and play football. That is not something that he has shown he can do at a very good level. Really the only thing, and like this keeps getting spouted to me literally under every single post I make, is his completion percentage was 64%. Like
I'm tired of judging quarterbacks off one number. I'm tired of that.
So yes, in that aspect, sure, he's probably better than Anthony Richardson. But everything else is almost a net negative. The arms, the ability, like inability to push the ball down the field, inability to throw into tight windows, his inability to make decisions post-snap or even pre-snap, because he's going to be learning a whole new offense, which is another reason why Anthony Richardson should have a leg up in this competition, because now this is his third year in the same offense. He'll have all the advantages of knowing all the verbiage and everything, and that's something Daniel Jones is going to be learning to do on the fly. If Daniel Jones wins this competition, it tells you two things. One, Anthony Richardson is done. He's
never going to be the guy. Never.
Yeah, you're
never
done.
Was going to be the guy.
At
least in Indy.
Yeah. And then on top of that, I mean, yeah, your season's probably toast. You're playing for the classic Chris Ballard 8-win, 7
survival. You're playing for survival. You're playing to survive, and that's just no disrespect.
So like that's kind of been my biggest thing is like, if Daniel Jones comes in, it's like you're paying him $14 million, possibly $17 million. Is he coming in? Are the Colts competing for anything with Daniel Jones at quarterback? Absolutely not. So I would rather have seen that money saved and gone to a comparable talent, which to me, I'm obviously not a huge Daniel Jones fan because I've watched him play football for 6 years. Comparable talent to me would be like a Gardner Minshew, a Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, but you couldn't actually bring those quarterbacks in. You couldn't. Like, you couldn't
say not Gardner, but like, I mean, there were some guys.
You couldn't. These are guys that have been backups for us, but now he's magically going to compete. Like, you have to, like, that's where I've really started to shift my perspective of like trying to put myself in Chris Ballard's legitimate shoes, who would have to like, and Shane Steichen's legitimate shoes, who have to go to like guys that were on the roster. Was there anyone who's still on the roster when Jacoby Brissett was there? I'm trying to think. Kenny Moore. I guess that's one.
Nelson.
Quentin. Was Quentin there? Yes, Quentin was there. So I'm just saying that like former backups of your team can't come in and play like and then.
Well, no, but I mean, like, even
who haven't started like.
But that's the caliber of guy that I think Daniel Jones is comparable to. So yes, he has started. They had to start him in New York based off of the draft capital they invested, the money they invested in him. They paid him a $40 million extension for his one average season of football. You usually are not going to bench that guy. But on the field, if we're strictly getting away from numbers, if we're strictly getting away from money, draft picks, all that, the on-field production has been backup level. Not even end of the roster, not even 31, 32. It's been in the 40s. We're talking about mid-level backup play. So to me, that is what he is. He is a mid-level backup quarterback. Now you hope, like you said, maybe he does have this miraculous Sam Darnold, Geno Smith thing, even though he was just cut 3 months ago from the Giants. He's only been gone for 3 months.
Can I make one quick point?
He stopped for Minnesota for a cup of coffee, basically.
Can I make one quick point and then you go? Here's the one thing when you try and compare the Darnold years and the Geno years to, first of all, I don't think any of them had 6 years starting a film before prior. The second point being is Sam Darnold and Geno Smith haven't had neck surgery, shoulder surgery, and a torn ACL. So, like, there's also for all the question marks there are about Anthony Richardson, where are the question marks for Daniel Jones? He has had 3 major surgeries. Like,
he's played 7. He's played 16 games once.
So that's my part. So, like, to me, it's pretty obvious that, like, this is a very expensive message to their quarterback that, hey, we need to see legitimate improvement. And if you don't see it, then, we're playing for survival.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not a fan of it, money-wise. If it was even at like a cheaper deal, I probably would have been perfectly fine with it. But it's going to answer a lot of questions about this team. It's going to answer a lot of questions about Anthony Richardson. We'll just see how it plays out. But yeah, I think right now, going into things, Anthony Richardson has to be considered the favorite for this job. I don't think there's any question about that. And really, I mean, it's not bad injury insurance, obviously, because he's shown that he will not play an entire season of football. And until he does show that, that's the status quo right now. So, we'll see. I don't hate the move. I don't like it. I like the messaging behind it, and I like what they're showing, but I don't like the player. And it's basically a longer form version of what Ben was saying is if Daniel Jones ends up winning this position or has to play any meaningful snaps this year, your season's dead. So, that's just kind of where I stand on it. I didn't realize Daniel Jones had so many fans. That is blowing my mind.
But he has a lot of haters too. Like but I'm just being real. Like, let's just get real.
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson is a big if for both these quarterbacks. It's not like and I think I messaged this to you. Just because Anthony Richardson isn't good doesn't mean we need to boost Daniel Jones. Like,
that's my thing. Is like, and that's not saying, like, me going online and saying that Anthony Richardson is a more talented player or quarterback than Daniel Jones is. Why is that an argumentative statement or a hateful statement? Like, this should be common sense. Like, yes, Anthony Richardson is a more talented player. That doesn't mean he's played good. That doesn't mean we should just
is the ability to execute plays on the football field, and Daniel Jones cannot do what Anthony Richardson can do.
That's like that video you sent me, like, I guess, where they were doing like the ESPN thing, and like the throws, I was like, Anthony Richardson, like, it's that throw to Ashton Dulin, and it's like Daniel Jones cannot make that throw.
He can't. He probably throw it more on time, but
he's not threading that needle. It's just not happening. Like the throw at the beginning of the year in Houston, Daniel Jones cannot make that.
Yeah, that's a pick six.
The 300
quarterbacks in the league that can do that.
The Josh Downs third down conversion versus the Jets, where they had the defensive end was mid sack, he makes the throw. Like you're just not doing that. So like, and those are the plays that if you look at it and like it's the EKG. The lows have been way too often. That's why I love that. I thought of it in the shower this morning. I'm like, this is unreal. This is amazing.
Thinking about Anthony Richardson in the shower.
Yeah, I mean, like, no, that's just where some good ideas come from. And I'm thinking to myself, like, he is the human EKG, and like
he always reminds me a little bit of like Russell Westbrook. Because that's how I feel about Russell Westbrook playing basketball.
Yeah, where it's like bad. Oh my god! And then you look at those.
It's like he'll go down the court and do like 3 times in a row, and it'll be like the dumbest thing you've ever seen.
And then he'll make one crazy play,
and he'll just make the most unbelievable play in the world. So yeah, and I think like that's where they're at with Richardson is like, and like this is kind of something that I put out as well, and I think this is kind of their thinking is like, there's a world where Anthony Richardson can learn to do the things that Daniel Jones can do. There is no universe that Daniel Jones can learn to do the things Anthony Richardson can. And to me, like that's the biggest deciding factor. Now, does that mean Anthony Richardson, having hope for a guy doesn't mean that, like I said, you just crown him and you're all in this, like, oh, this is the year he's going to put it all together. No, he still has to go out and prove it. Nobody's saying that. Like you were saying, like nobody's saying Anthony Richardson has been a great football player, or even like a good football player.
No, he's bad. He's been bad. He's not done enough.
He's been a bad quarterback.
But Anthony Richardson, of the two, if they're in the best case scenarios, help the Colts. Like the Colts are competing for. I don't think this is crazy to say. Now the chances he ever reaches his ceiling,
it's very small,
very slim.
But if he does, has to hit his ceiling to be more impactful, though. I think if he just gives you average, he's been very below average in a number of areas. If he even brings those numbers up to average, if you combine average quarterback play with the peaks that he can give you 2 or 3 times a game, that is an extremely dangerous quarterback. He doesn't even have to hit his ceiling. If he can get to 80% of what his ceiling,
and let's be real, he's just got to stay healthy. Like that's the
the biggest question.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, but like obviously the tap out is really, really bad in terms of the leadership and some of the stuff off the field is not great. I would still say the biggest indictment on Anthony Richardson is he has not been able to stay healthy. And that's a big issue because when he was coming out, the whole thing is this guy's a lottery ticket. If it cashes, it's going to be great, but he needs to play. As he only played in 15 games. Was that what it was? I forgot what he had played in college. But he didn't have much to go off of, but like some of the plays he could make.
It was like 12. I think it was
12. I forgot the number, but like he didn't play in very many games. So the whole thing was reps. So 2023 was getting him reps. He had the concussion versus Houston.
Yes.
Was there another injury in there? I can't remember.
There's the Jacksonville game where he came out.
There was the Jacksonville, but there was the concussion. And then
that was like 2 plays before the game.
There was one more before the Tennessee game, right?
No, there was 3. So there was week 1 against Jacksonville. He left for like the last 2 or 3 plays of the game. Then the Houston game happened. He got knocked out, and he missed the next game with the same injury, with a concussion.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yes. So, and then he came back, and that was when
for the Rams game, and then the Titans game was the shoulder.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I knew it was in there. Anyway, he missed out on all those reps. Then 2024 happened. What?
Was that? And then you get to this season.
And then you get to this season where it's like, okay, he got the bench for the 2 games, but he also had the back towards the end of the year. Couldn't play in what was a crucial Giants game.
He had the oblique injury.
He had the oblique versus the Steelers, and then he had was that the only 2? I don't know. It's I should be able to remember these all, but I can't off the top of my head.
Yeah, and that's
anyway,
that's is you can't remember all of the injuries.
Yeah, there's been a lot so far, and it's like, and I had put this out before free agency because I had done like a study on the Colts run game. And like I charted, I think like 36 different runs. Like they had the most diverse. Like if you're a high school coach and you're for some reason watching this, Go look at the 2024 Colts, because they had every run imaginable. Like, they were running Anthony Richardson like a running back. Like, that's what it was. Like, there is no, Dan Campbell, when he was in his press conference, was like, yeah, they have everything in there. Like, they are running quarterback power, which you don't see because you don't want NFL quarterbacks running between the A and B gaps or C gaps even. Like, you want, when the quarterback, the reason you see so much zone read and all that stuff is you want the quarterback getting tackled by corners and safeties and out of bounds. You don't want him in the middle with defensive linemen. They do not care with Anthony Richardson. They will run. I don't think that that's really sustainable for this year either. I think that the quarterback element, that you have to be able to pull the reins of the quarterback run game in a bit so that you can find efficiency other ways, because the offense, I think, looking back on it and reflecting on, how I analyzed the Colts last year, the first couple of games, I'm like, this offense stinks. Like, yeah, Anthony Richardson's made some shot plays, but it's run, deep play action pass. And there was nothing to move the chains. It was insanely inefficient. The time of possession was massively skewed. And I'm just thinking here, like, this is incredibly frustrating to watch. Incredibly frustrating. And part of the reason might be is, like, Anthony Richardson can really only throw a deep ball. Is that fair to say at this point? Like, that's where his best plays happen for the most part. And I think you're going to need to see, I mean, I feel like I'm talking in circles. Everyone knows what Anthony Richardson needs to improve upon. But, like, they want him to be the quarterback. I will, like, it's almost laughable to say that, like, there's some national reporters out there that are pushing this agenda that Anthony Richardson is this massive underdog because he's historically inaccurate. And, like, sure, that's true, but, like, I promise you, he is not the underdog. He has a massive head start in this competition for no other reason than the NFL is still a business, and you need to be able to win games. Like, you just need to be able to win games. And Anthony Richardson gives you the chance to do that at a higher level. Like, Joe Flacco wasn't good last year either. Like, so I feel like I'm taking crazy pills and all this because Anthony Richardson is the guy that they invested the 4th overall pick in. $14 million doesn't change that still. So, like, it is what it is. Daniel Jones is just going to have to play better for me to take him seriously as a quarterback. He's going to get the opportunity to do it. I think there's a real chance that he does win the competition. I think there's a chance. I don't think he's the favorite, though.
Yeah, and I think, too, like, unless there's marketed improvement with Anthony Richardson, especially even in camp, like, Daniel Jones is going to look better in camp. He's going to look better in shorts. He's going to be able to hit those.
I'm not sure about that, though. Like, yeah, he'll be able to make the 5 yards.
That's what I'm saying. If 2023 Anthony Richardson shows up, right, there's been no improvement at all.
I'd say 2023 might have been better than 2024.
Or 2024, that's what I meant. Yeah. If last year's Anthony Richardson shows up, Daniel Jones in shorts without pressure in his face is going to be able to hit.
That red jersey when that red jersey comes on. It's
in the red jersey. That's what I'm saying. Is like he's going to be able to hit those layups and keep those chains moving and hit the check downs, and he's going to be able to make those throws. And Anthony Richardson has struggled with.
What's going to be my favorite part is when, like, the beat reporters come out with their, like, he went like 10 for whatever, and like
10 for 12.
Yeah, and then Anthony Richardson's is significantly lower, and then I'm telling you this is going to happen now. And then the aggregators are like, it's Daniel Jones season.
Daniel Jones went 10 for 12.
No, it's not Daniel Jones. It's Indiana Jones.
Yards and a pick.
You have to prepare. I'm actually going to put a tweet out about this after the show.
Indiana Jones.
You are going to see a thing where Anthony Richardson had a bad day at practice, and they tweet out, like, the completion percentages, and Daniel Jones made 5 checkdowns more. And
that's what I'm saying. It's going to be like. It's going to be like 10 for 12
Indiana
for
Jones
like 43 yards. He's going to have like a 4.3
I'm tweeting this out. Landon, you go on a spiel because I'm tweeting this out right now.
Yeah. It's going to be like 4.3 yards per attempt. And then Anthony Richardson, it's going to be like he was 3 for 9 for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then the completion percentages are going to be skewed. And everybody online is going to be like, see, this is why Daniel Jones better players. Look at the completion percentages. But here's the thing, too. And I think this needs to be said about Daniel Jones. Because we can get out here and joke about him and all that stuff. And rightfully so. He's earned some of those, right? I mean, we've watched him play football. We've seen him trip over himself.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah,
wide open.
We've watched it, but and this is something where Anthony Richardson, by all accounts, needs significant growth in. And this is somewhere where Daniel Jones has never needed growth in. And that's right now work ethic and leadership. And I mean, Daniel Jones is going to come in and he's going to be a consummate professional. He is a professional quarterback. Like, great. Like, you listen to anybody that's played with the guy, even in New York with all that stuff going on, even with the play, great quarterback. Like, Saquon Barkley has like nothing but glowing things to say about Daniel Jones. Great leader in the locker room. He's a guy that guys rally behind. He works his ass off every single day. Not even just in practice, but outside of the building. He is always working. And that's really part of the reason why Anthony Richardson was benched last year, is because there were question marks about that. And they've told you as much, right?
Yeah, it's not a secret.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not like I'm breaking news here. Like, you know, outside of the building, like, were things being taken seriously at the quarterback position as far as film study, as far as, you know, not being late to treatments and that kind of stuff? Like, no, that's not breaking news. This has been spoken on. But that's something you never have to worry about with a guy like Daniel Jones. So hopefully, and it did seem like Anthony Richardson really learned, you know, like, hey, and this isn't saying his work ethic was bad. Like, whenever he was in the building, and you listen to the same coaches and stuff, whenever he's in the building, he's working. Like, he has good work ethic. He's coming in, he's trying. It was just at that position, it can't just be the status quo. It has to be above and beyond. Shane Steichen has talked about the endless pursuit of obsession, right? Like, you have to be obsessed as a quarterback. That has to be your whole life. And that's kind of the area that it was lacking. It wasn't that Anthony Richardson was sleeping in quarterback meetings and lollygagging his way through practice. No, but there needed to be a higher standard, you know, applied. And that's somewhere where Daniel Jones has really shined at, is he does have that endless obsession, the, you know, the work ethic, the leadership and stuff like that. So, you know, that is a positive. So hopefully Anthony Richardson, this does, and this is their hope too. He locks in. I know he's right now. I know he's working because I just came from Florida. Dude's working his ass.
Would you see him in Florida? Yeah. Like, what is you having to be in Florida?
I did pass through Jacksonville for a little while. Thank you very much. But yeah, it was.
I was in the same state as him. He's grinding.
Same town, same city, all that for a little while. Eventually, I went further south, but we did stop in Jacksonville. So, but by all accounts, like, the dude is down in Florida. He's been there, I want to say almost 2 months now, about a month and a half. He's been down there. Like, he's working his ass off down there. So I think this is a good thing. He's not shying away from the competition at all. He is embracing it, and that's really what you want to see. There were like those reports, whenever it came out, it's like, oh, is he going to request a trade? Are they done with Anthony?
Why would a starting quarterback?
That was so dumb.
He's going to be the starter.
Yeah, like, no, he's embracing it. He's working. He wants to get better, and I think he now has a better understanding of what is required from a professional quarterback, the face of the franchise. And so that's a little bit why I am still bullish on him taking a step forward. So, yeah, it's
like
a positive thing.
It blows my mind.
We spent like half of our show just on this one topic.
Yeah. Let's move on, because there are some other signings I kind of want to get to, because I think
possible signings.
Oh yeah, we can definitely let's just speed through some of this. I just want to make a quick point about Neville Gallimore, Corey Ballantyne, Khalil Herbert. I might be missing one more, but I think those are the three.
Wesley French and Danny Pinter.
Danny Pinter. Like, at this point, like, here's kind of what I'm thinking. It's like, everyone's like, oh, they're clearing cap space for Trey Hendrickson, and I'm thinking to myself, like, we can get into that, but like, they need to create cap space so they can create more competition on the roster and get in guys that are instead of betting on 6-round draft picks to go be hungry and take over a starter, they're betting on guys that are kind of journeymen in a sense, like, to come in and like, hey, you have a chance to legitimately compete for a spot. So all in all, I like these vet minimum deals. This is at this point in free agency, you want guys, and I put this out beforehand. The Saquons are nice to get those high-end guys. That's great. But what everyone is really looking for is the Zach Bonds and the Mekhi Bectons, which are outliers. But if you can get guys that can significantly outplay your contract and you identify them for cheap, that is invaluable.
Which Ballard's actually been pretty good at, honestly. Like whenever he has
for all the criticism, and I have plenty, that is one area that I feel like he's been good at, is signing some outside free agents on cheaper deals. And it didn't work out with this past year with the 2 that he signed.
No, but I mean, like you have guys like Justin Houston, I think outplayed his deal. Danico Autry outplayed his deal. There's Stephon Gilmore outplayed his deal. There's been guys that he has signed to these minimum deals that have come in and
Ronnie McLeod.
Yeah, Ronnie McLeod. That's another perfect example. That have come in and really made positive impacts on this team and outplayed what they're getting paid at. So, I would love to see more. Now, I will say, not to aggregate stuff, but there is interest in the Trey Henderson stuff. Like, it's not like
I'm very anti.
You're gonna hate it.
Very anti.
You're gonna hate it, but I mean, like,
I'm anti.
But the conversations have been had. Like, it's,
and I don't think
tell us more.
The conversation is like, yo, what do you think? Lou's like, yeah, let's do it. And then let's call.
Well, it's more like the conversation was like, what do you want? And the Bengals are like, we want a first-round pick, and it's like, okay,
because here's kind of my
get back to you whatever you're not when you're being serious.
If you can get Trey Hendrickson at like a 3rd round pick or a 4th round pick, I'm all about it.
Which I'm pretty sure that's kind of where they're at right now, is like,
but
3rd.
But like, here's what it's one thing to pay a guy like a Myles Garrett contract. It's another thing to give up premium assets for an opportunity to pay a guy that kind of, so you're paying double for the production. And that's where it's like with these sign and trades, it's like in some cases it's worth it. Like you look at a guy who's 26 and has a lot of, you're going to get him for 2 contracts potentially. It's like Micah Parsons. You could talk me into paying double for Micah Parsons because I'm going to get him for 2 contracts and he's in the prime of his career. And like, but again, you would also talk me out of it because why not continue to throw shots at the dartboard to find our own Micah Parsons? Because I'm paying double. You would have to.
Well, it's because that's one of the 2 positions Chris Ballard has failed at continually.
Yeah, I agree. But like a 31-year-old, and I'm not saying that Trey Hendrickson is washed up, but I'm saying the likelihood.
No, he's still got tons of, because I think early on in his
second contract with the Colts, that's not likely. Like that's not likely.
I think early on in his career, he didn't play a lot of football, so like he doesn't have a lot of tread on the tires. You should look. This should be exciting.
I'm laughing at some of the comments
because Marcus is going to lose his twin, but you could gain yours.
I hate it.
You can gain yours. You and Trey Hendrickson look just alike, by the way. I'm sorry. Every time I see him, you're all I can think of. He's your twin.
Me?
Yes, you. Have you
That's
seen
a compliment.
Trey Hendrickson?
That's an insane compliment. Let's go. Let's go.
You look just like Trey Hendrickson. That's what I'm saying. Marcus is going to lose his twin, but we'll just add another one.
You see what I did for you? You should be thanking me.
Yeah, you look like Trey Hendrickson. If you're in the chat,
I can't see it at all. I can't see it at all.
There's no.
But I don't think anyone's ever said, "Oh, I can see I look like that guy." I don't think anyone's ever said that. So,
go ahead and share your thoughts on Neville Gallimore.
Tell me that.
I don't think I look like Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah, you kind of do.
What?
Kind of. Yeah, I can see it.
Smile
like that.
There you go.
Like what? I do not look like Trey Hendrickson. Anyway, I don't want him. So sorry, Trey. I'm kidding. Trey has nothing to do with Trey Hendrickson, the player. I hope that it's the Trey Hendrickson, the transaction. Yes. It's the transaction, not the player. Obviously, the player.
So also, too, you want to get into another rumor? Say Dallas Goedert is cut.
So here's my thought with Dallas Goedert as well. And does he upgrade the tight end room? Yes. Do I feel like you're paying? Do I feel what? I guess I don't know why I'm complaining about a clear compliment. Like, he's an NFL player. Like, if I look like I'm sick, it's the transaction with Dallas Goedert as well. I feel like you're paying for a name. Like, first of all, I don't do deals with Howie Roseman. That would be my guess. If Howie Roseman, let him cut it. If he gets cut and he wants to come sign here, that's totally different. But like, here's the reality with Dallas Goedert. He's 30. He probably wants to get paid like a top tight end, and he hasn't stayed on the field. Those are just the facts that you can't argue. So do I think that the Colts are going to be interested? Yeah. I would be interested. Do you have this?
I think they're interested if he's cut. I don't know if they make the deal for his current deal.
Like what? Like a 7th round pick? I give a 7th round pick at
That's
most.
what I'm saying, but I think there's a high likelihood. Well, I don't know if necessarily high, but I do think there is a likelihood that if they do decide to move on, there's a chance that he does end up getting released. They release him, if anything, just to allow him to go, as a thank you, like, hey, we're just going to release you. You go pick your destination. And so I think
the tea leaves with the amount of tight ends they've signed kind of says.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I think there's a likelihood he does end up getting cut if a move isn't made trade-wise. And I think that's where I would get into the realm of the Colts being interested, is if he becomes a free agent and they can sign him. Obviously,
what's the deal going to look like? Because that's my other thing. Is like, the facts is that Dallas, when he is on the field, is still a good player. And it's like, you've done worse than sign 30-year-old tight ends. But my other thing is like, he hasn't stayed healthy. And it's like, if he gets injured, then you're back to potentially square one. And
yeah, but I can see them doing like the double dip thing, like, signing Dallas Goedert and then also drafting a guy. Not necessarily in the first round.
That is certainly possible.
Not in the first round.
That is certainly possible.
In a deep tight end class.
I'm interested to see how it plays out. I think that Dallas is a clear fit for the scheme easily, obviously because he did it and went to a Super Bowl doing it. In one of the best offenses in the league last year, in 2022. But like, those are the things that like that trade looks great in Madden when you can turn injuries off and you're playing like a Madden franchise. But like, and that's what some of these things are. I feel like a Debbie Downer sometimes. I'm like, these aren't smart transactions. So like, if he becomes released, I think it's very possible that Dallas Goedert ends up in Philadelphia. If Howie is willing to give up a day through, in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Granson did just sign with the Eagles. I don't think that's to threaten a starting job per se. I think that's people acted like the best general manager of all time, or one of, made the worst mistake of his life. Signing Kylie Granson to probably a vet minimum 1-year deal. So, but yeah, that's just my thoughts on those two things. It's like you're going to see a lot of these guys become available. And the first question that you should always ask yourself before you say, oh, that sounds great, is like, why is this team teams don't get rid of good players? They just don't.
Well, I messaged you earlier too. Is like, especially when it involves Chris Ballard, because we've seen it play out. I have a very strong adherence to the do not trade with Howie Roseman philosophy. You don't trade with Howie Roseman
unless it's like the absolute worst case scenario of losing that trade. Like okay, you give up a 5th round pick.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, Dallas Goedert is out for the season. It's like, did we really like it? Yeah, that's probably like a depth piece or like a potential piece we lost out on if you do like the math. But like, we'll be okay. But like, but Howie's going to want more. And like, if people knew that Dallas Goedert was going to be on the trade block at the combine, and then they put out something today that like, oh, they're thinking about trade. Like, I think this is something that people knew. So if he's released, I think it's a really good option to potentially be a glue for this year. And maybe you double dip, but also I think that there's some guys in this draft class that could come in and still be pretty good options for you. So, yeah, that's kind of
the old Gunty approach is we're going to sign a guy and we're going to draft a guy.
Yeah, exactly.
One of them's got to be okay.
We're just going to throw darts at, and that's what the, like, sometimes it's like, man, you just got to throw darts at the dartboard. Like, that's literally what it is. So yeah, I don't know if did we cover everything?
Yeah. What was your thoughts on Neville Gallimore?
I think it's a good low risk vet minimum signing. I think he's a guy that could potentially outplay his contract. Probably someone they liked in the draft. He comes from a system that's probably similar to how they're going to start playing up front. It's going to be less like attacking style of defense and more read and react, and canceling gaps and stuff like that. So I think he'll be good in that capacity. I don't think with any of these signings moving forward that your expectations should be ultra high because, listen, as you want guys that outplay their contract, but again, like the Zach Bond thing, the Mekhi Beck, those are outliers, man. Like that doesn't happen all the time. So, like the best case scenario for Neville Gallimore is he comes in and he plays better than Taven Bryan and Raekwon Davis. Like that's your best case scenario for Neville Gallimore. So I won't like the tape's the tape. Like if this guy was any good, he would be sought after. That's just the reality. But like the Colts, if their pro personnel staff is as good as they think they are, they're going to identify good players from around the league that struggled and that might be able to come in and help them win. So that's kind of how I think I'll feel for like the majority. I'll probably have the same feeling about Khalil Herbert. Like not particularly bullish on him as a runner, is a core 4 special teams player, and I can maybe give you some much needed, stuff in between the tackles. But I'm not saying that he's going to come out here and like be Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Like, come on.
Same thing about Corey Ballentine on special teams.
Yeah, Corey Ballantyne's actually a really good. A lot of people were saying that that's going to challenge the cornerback room. I think he'll have a chance to compete. I think everyone's going to get a chance to compete, but I think that's more about the gunner spot. Tyler Goodson held that role down with Ashton Dooland. I think that just adds competition there. Corey Ballentine is a really good gunner, has some kick return ability as well, so he's going to be pretty significant on special teams. But
and he's more of a nickel too. He's more of a slot guy as well.
Yeah, it's like, and that's when Kenny Moore has been out. There was a guy. I'm forgetting who was the backup nickel. He came from the Chiefs. He played in the Raiders game in 23.
Oh God.
Someone help me out.
We had a lot of plumbers, so
I have to look.
Also, the Colts signed Spencer Schrader back to the roster.
Yeah, I have nothing to say about it.
Yes, great competition.
I'm gonna lose my mind.
You're gonna find it. And other than that, it's going to be amazing when Jason Bean beats Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones in the QB competition, but nobody's talking about that.
Chris Lamons.
There it is.
Chris Lamons. Ben, got to get that one now. The Bengals are trading stars.
No, that's troll.
There's nothing that would be news. I wish Landon put something on him. Like I wish he could unmention it. I don't want that. It's a bad use of resources for a team that's not going to win. And like, it's not. Let's be real. Unless Anthony Richardson reaches the start, they're not winning a Super Bowl. Like a really good year for the Colts. Let's just be honest. They win a playoff game. That's a really good year for them. Like, but I'm just being realistic. They would be massively overachieving for them to like think that they could do more because they don't have a quarterback to say that is going to go toe to toe with Josh Allen or Joe Burrow or, you know what? They're not even going toe to toe. They'd be going toe to toe with that defense. So
yeah, I was going to say they don't play 1-on-1.
So yeah,
if they played 1-on-1, Anthony Richardson might actually might beat him in a 1-on-1 game.
Just for the fact that the defense is so bad.
Well, no, I just meant like if you're having just a 1-on-1 athletic competition between Anthony Richardson and Joe
quarterback in the league, like that's by the combine, that is a fact. We'll see. Do I think I'm more optimistic about this season than I was last week? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Landon, you go first.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say I
was always going to be, as long as they addressed the secondary and the defense and invested like real resources into that, not just this undrafted free agent, basically what they did last year. As long as they didn't do what they did last year with this defense, I was always going to be more optimistic on this season. I still think everything, no matter what moves they make, regardless if they bring in Trey Hendrickson and bring in Dallas Goedert, they can bring in both of them. None of it really matters unless the quarterback takes a leap. I think that's pretty fair to say.
I think they could raise their floor doing that.
Yeah, it could raise their floor.
I think
but you're not really going anywhere.
They could increase the chance that they win 9 games. They could increase that chance.
Yeah.
Like that's what I think that those moves would do. I think if you want to see them,
well, that's kind of what I said last year too.
I think for any,
even with Shane Steichen, like with Anthony Richardson playing at the level he was, I said it before the season. Even if Anthony Richardson's bad, with Shane Steichen as your coach, with the offensive line, with Jonathan Taylor, with guys like DeForest Buckner, like your floor is 7 games. Like that's your floor.
Yeah, they're not losing. They're not losing.
They're not losing any more than 7. Or that's the least.
As long as people are like isn't like a total injury fest,
right? Yeah. So like right now, I'm kind of in a similar thing. Is like if Anthony Richardson makes no leap, if Joe, not Joe Burrow. No, I said Joe Burrow. That would be
pretty much the same person.
Yeah, that would be nice. But Daniel Jones, if Anthony Richardson makes no improvements, if Daniel Jones comes in and play, I think with the additions they've made on defense, including the defensive hires, the coordinators and stuff like that, I think your floor is probably around 7 or 8 games. That's just how it is. Now, if the quarterback hits, yeah, you're probably looking at double digits. But everything's going to be dependent on that this season.
I think if you even get we had a little bit of a debate, and I'm not sure how many people are watching this still, but if you're a Colts fan out there, here's also the what?
519.
That is way more than I thought. Oh wow. I wonder how many of the 500 think I look like Trey Hendrickson. But anyway, if you're a Colts fan out there, here's the reality. I'm being as biased as possible, or unbiased as possible. Sorry. This division's still wide open. In terms of the AFC, the Colts probably have the easiest path to be a team that didn't win their division last year to go win it this year. It's just a fact. In 2023, it was 10-7, 9-8, 9-8. This year it was 10-7 again from Houston, and then 8-9 was the second best team. So like, though that isn't like some sort of, and 10 is significantly less than the Chiefs that are winning 15, the Bills that won 13, the AFC North, which is just an absolute gauntlet. I think they still won 12, if I'm correct. So like, I would be way more doom and gloom about this team if they weren't in the AFC South. They are in the AFC South. That division is just, frankly, the most wide open. Is still the most wide open. Nothing has changed. So the reality is, I don't think it's a terrible lie to tell yourself that in 2023, you were a couple plays away, probably more of like a quarter away from going to the playoffs with Gardner Minshew, and pretty much through Shane Steichen's tenure, no legitimate quarterback play. Like, it really hasn't been good. So I don't think it's the worst lie to tell yourself that if we, bring in a little bit of competition around the roster, the defense gets better, that we could be right back in there. Now,
yeah, like last year, for example, even with the quarterback play, and I think this is something too that me and you have talked about whenever we were talking about the defense specifically, is like they ranked pretty much bottom 5 in most defensive categories, right? So most of the time it's somewhere around 28th in the league, whether it's in pass defense, run defense, scoring. I think they were 24th, stuff like that. If you go just so this is the exact same offensive play. You have the exact same offense last year. If your defense goes from being 28th to 18th, do the Colts make the playoffs? I think there's a high possibility the answer is yes to that. That's probably worth a couple more wins on the season. And at that point, you're probably winning 10 games and you're tying Houston, possibly beat Houston. So, yeah, I think if the defense takes they don't even have to go into like top 10 territory, but I think if you go from 24th, 28th, kind of like where they've been the last 3 or 4 years, if that number gets into 15, 14, 13, that's a significant leap. And the offense, as Shane Steichen has shown, they can be good enough in spurts to where you can win games with that, as long as your defense, like, the Joe Flacco thing last year, where the offense finally popped off, they scored 30-something points, they're giving up 40, or the Giants game, like if those two type of games don't happen and you have a better defensive performance, there's a high possibility you likely make the playoffs the last couple of years. So, yeah, I don't think it's I don't think it's anything crazy to say that people should be optimistic. I think you should be optimistic about the quarterback situation, especially from Anthony Richardson, because
the national media will tell you that they shouldn't be, and that's fine. I think when you look at this and you don't,
I mean, like, can it really get worse though than last year? That's my thing. It's like,
yes, definitely.
Yeah, like, I mean, like,
you can be 4-12. You absolutely can.
No, I mean, like, from the quarterback situation. Like,
no, I don't think so.
Yeah, like, can it really get like worse than completing like 40% of your passes and having more turnovers than you do touchdowns?
This is a good question that we just got. Under the radar signing that we would still. I have one, but I just don't think that like.
I'd have to go look at and see who's still available. Really.
I'll give one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to see, depending on the deal, like, no, I don't think he'd sign back. No, I don't want to say that one. I'm gonna go look.
You don't want to say it?
No, I don't want to say it because it's gonna get
which position?
It's gonna be too controversial. It's gonna be too controversial. I'm not gonna be saying it.
You don't want to give us a hint? Like the position, at least.
It was a tight end. I'm not gonna say it though. You know what? How about Isaiah Simmons from the Giants? I think that gives you a little.
I like that. We do need
linebacker options. Similar type of thing. You could definitely get him for cheap. Was kind of this safety linebacker hybrid that has familiarity with Jerome Henderson, and I think could be someone. So give me Isaiah Simmons.
I would say for a team that had a person like that transitioned from safety to linebacker and never used him anymore after he flourished when he played, what was the safety from Alabama? And he caught a pick on his first game. I'm having a brain fart.
I do not know.
He was a safety at first, and then we got him a linebacker.
Can I just answer one question before we get out of here? What is like the love with people being like, oh, like we're gonna draft Eamon Warry now, and like we're gonna draft Malachi Starks? I'm like, dude, we just gave a safety $15 million APY. Like that doesn't make sense to me. Like they're gonna do it again, and this is like the safety isn't like some like premier position, y'all. Like it's
Ronnie Harrison Jr. That was the person I was thinking.
Oh, Ronnie Harrison Jr. is great. That's a great shout. But yeah, that doesn't make sense to me at all. Whatever. All right, I think we just about covered it.
Yeah, that pretty much.
Like there's a reason for me, like a guy like Will Hernandez, I wouldn't mind to see come in and compete at guard.
Familiarity with Tony Sperano? I think so. Right?
Yeah.
Was he there when he
New York
was with the Giants? Yeah, should be.
Giants, which he went to Arizona as well, so he just got done with Arizona. But yeah, I mean he's pretty high draft pick as well. Got some talent to him. Like I wouldn't be bad competition or depth, at that spot. So
yeah, well, Justin Simmons is still out there.
We'll definitely see some more vet minimum deals. Like they are just going to bring in. They're just throwing shots at the dartboard now. They're kind of doing what the Eagles are doing, but just with the Eagles didn't have the money to make the splash signings because they did Bond and Saquon. But they're just throwing darts at the dartboard and saying, like, here's a vet minimum deal. Try and outplay your contract. Come compete for our team. It's basically open tryouts. Like, that's what the Colts are doing, just with really good players for an open tryout. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What's your thoughts on EJ Speed and Julian Blackman? Last thing before we go.
I think those guys are probably not going to be back. I'd be surprised if EJ Speed.
Oh, no, they won't be back here. No.
Yeah, no, I don't think they're back. I thought there was like maybe a small chance of DJ Speed. I think we're past that point, where I think that that deal might have been gotten done. I thought EJ Speed would maybe be signed by now, but he really did not have a good 2024. So I think he's a guy that's looking for potentially one of those vet minimum deals.
Yep.
Maybe gets more money than that, But
yeah, that's all we got for you guys. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Shout out to all the supporters, to all the views today. Appreciate you guys. Follow us on all platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, you name it. Just look up the Blue Staple Podcast. We're everywhere. Appreciate your support. Whenever the coach drops some more news, we'll be back for sure. But the draft's right around the corner as well. So go ahead and put your drafts in the comment section of who you would want. I've seen a few in the comment section, but we kind of skipped over that. But other than that, appreciate you guys. That's Landon. That's Colts Film Room. Until next time, you guys stay safe. Enjoy your weekend, and we will see you next time.